Greetings, viewers, and thanks for joining me outside today on my way to the shop for a day you probably thought was never going to come. I sure as hell was getting skeptical there for a while. The Tacoma, the finish up of the wiring. I got one of those really nice fold-up creeper knee kneeler pad things. They fold up like a chair too. For Christmas, it's awesome. Highly recommend it. I still got to wire up the washers. I still got to wire up the wipers. I have the pigtails for those. I'll either do that at the end or in the little detail-y things. Man, this did not turn out the way I thought it was going to. Probably didn't turn out the way you thought it was going to. Can't say that it's right or wrong. There was a solution I could not seem to accomplish. I know I'm already getting way ahead of myself. Let me go over there the other side, break out a flashlight, see if I can explain to you everything that had to happen. Poor Oswald's feeling neglected. Don't let him fool you. We've been out there playing for the last half hour so I could do this. I got everything in there from the from the third gen. Okay, so I should probably start from the beginning. This is a 1995, a July of 95 date. So this is what some people call the 95 and a half. Either way, it's a 95 truck. The harness and engine all came out of a 1998 4Runner SR5. This is a base DX truck, no frills. So when I say this plug is for something that this truck doesn't have, that's legit. I'll start out with what I thought was going to be a relatively simple part that I had to go and find help for. I'm looking for my light here. Found it. All right, now I hooked up, if you remember correctly, everything, the body harness, all this is from that 4Runner. Everything under the dash is all from the 4Runner, all the way down to these plugs. These two plugs went to the doors, to the front door. The only thing I need out of it for this truck is my speaker wire. That happens to be a purple and pink on this blue plug here. Purple and pink is your front door speaker on the 4Runner. That's all I need to tie into this 2-wire plug on the Tacoma. I'll use some of these dandy melt together fasteners. I think I may have showed you these, not sure. These are freaking awesome. Okay, so as everything came down to those plugs on both sides of the truck, mind you, I had only this wiring harness remaining from the Tacoma. I know this red and white one was for my seatbelt warning buzzer. I decoded by adding power to the ends of these wires that the brown one did not like that. But the green ones were tail lights, brake lights, turn signals. Yeah. I wired up just this big blue wire, which goes to the fuel pump, to a hot source, grounded this big fat white and black one that's coming up out of there to a ground source, and that was making my fuel pump run, but it was running all the time at full pressure, and then just sending the fuel back through the return, which is not ideal, but it did work for me to drive the truck around. I was able to discover the blue wire, the white and black wire, the green wires for lights. I did not know what this brown wire was for. I did not know what, where is it here? Yeah, this yellow with the, yellow with the red stripe. There's a couple more on there. I'm going to show you what they all went to on this end down here. There were 2 grounds in there because the seat buzzer wire had its own ground, okay? Turn this around. This is the other end of the seat. It needs a power supply. This blue wire here that I kept in the plug over there is a hot 12 volt all the time wire. I don't remember why we kept this black and red one, but it doesn't seem to go to anything at this point. My green and yellow from the Tacoma went to this all green. This green and yellow is the right side turn signal. Now the reason it goes to an all green here, you can follow that up and over. The Forerunner ran the right side lights down the right side harness. So I just robbed this. I'll show you when I get to that other side. I just robbed that green wire from the harness that's hanging over there that I can show you to get my right turn signal. Now Tacoma didn't have wires running down both sides, so the brake lights and running lights are tied together in one wire. I don't know which one this is, but the green with black on the Tacoma went to green with black from the Forerunner harness. Easy enough, right? Green with white went green with white. These were all turn signal, left, right, brake, and then this final green one, tail. Not saying that the one I'm holding is the tail, but these are the ones that did that. You can put them together. This went green and black to green and black too. Now, to me, that was very encouraging. I'll get to that later. The blue went to a blue with orange on the Forerunner, so the blue that powers the fuel pump went to blue with orange on the Forerunner. The thick black with white is a ground, goes to thick black with white on the Forerunner. Now I've got these wires here, not that white one, that's the ground for the seat buzzer. I got this yellow and orange that went to yellow and orange. I got a dark brown that went to light brown, so yellow and orange to yellow and orange on both the Tacoma to the Forerunner. Dark brown to light brown, Tacoma to the Forerunner. And then a red with a black stripe, which also matched up Tacoma to the Forerunner. Pretty easy, but that took a long time, and somebody else, I had to borrow a best friend's brain and help him to, or have him help me to do this. So as I'm saying, this is what I did. This is what he figured out and put together for me. So I was really struggling to read those schematics at the time. The red and black one is reverse lights. The yellow and orange one is your fuel sending unit. The brown one to brown, the only thing I could find that it did was make the little orange gas tank light up on your fuel gauge when you get to low fuel. That's the only thing it seemed to do. So, don't know if it's supposed to do something else, but I did hook it up, even though the Tacoma does not have the option. The DX model did not come with the low fuel warning light. All right, I'm going to pause right there to wet my whistle, come back and go to the other side of the car to show you what has happened over there. Let me make sure. Oh, I'm not finished up here yet. Hang on. Over here, this red wire with the white stripe, it's a real thick insulation, but real thin wire. Okay, that went to the door buzzer right there in the door. When it come in, I had to run one wire. Try and get it untangled there. Had to run one wire, this blue one, up to the dome light wire. There's also a low voltage wire that comes out of there that makes the key buzzer sound when the door is open. That one tied into that switch as well. Out of the Forerunner harness, there is a blue with yellow stripe that runs up to the door light, or the dome light as well. This would also make the your door is open indicator light come on when you, if you had that option. The Tacoma doesn't have that. That tells you when your doors are open because it's a DX model. Okay, I hope this is all making sense. Any ones that are over here besides that blue one that I know is hot We kept those thought we needed them, turned out we didn't. I haven't removed them yet. Obviously, I got to package all this. This plugs into your dash dimmer. This is for options that the 4Runner had that this truck doesn't have. This is my high mount brake light. I need to run one of these to a ground and the other one to the wire that makes my brake lights come on so that I'll have the high mount brake light. Still need to put that connector together. Okay, now I'm going to go over the other side, explain that, and then I'll get to the tricky part that I encountered with the speedometer being electric and tell you what I did there. And I love my critters. Man, I can't tell you how nice it was to have Slim by my side while I was doing some of this with his soothing purr. It was very nice. All right. First thing I did wrong over here was I ran that wire up there. It should have came out down here with that one because they have to plug into this module. This is the ABS module, and on the 4Runner, this module has to be plugged in for your cruise control to work. Okay? It also has to be plugged in to make your electric speedometer work, but that's a whole nother can of worms I'm going to open up here at the end. All right. So save that module, plug it in so your cruise control will work. That's just part of your computer wires that go on the dash. That's for the airbag on the passenger side, which doesn't happen on here. That's for glove box light, which this vehicle did not have. This little pigtail of 3 green wires. Okay, I've already drug it up here. It went to this gray plug with the little plastic hat on it. That were my 3 tail light wires, my brake light, running light, and turn signal for the right-hand side. So these are still, one is brake, one is running, but since the Tacoma doesn't offer a right side harness, that's jumped off of just one over there, those will need to be taped up, and you can see where I jumped and run across to tie my right turn signal in. Over here, the blue and the light green are your speaker wires. Again, that's all I need out of here. I have to change the plug on this so I can plug it in. I have the plug that, I have the plug that fits this blower motor. I also have the blower motor that fits this plug. I'm going to change one or the other. That's a minor thing. But aside from those light wires and those 2 speaker wires, that's all you need out of this right side harness. Some tips I learned along the way, and again, I don't mean to discredit at all my good friend Todd, who helped me. He did so much of this for me, and he taught me how to read schematics, and I'll show you a little tiny quickie on that. This has to be plugged in or your turn signals won't work. Okay, learned that the hard way, didn't have it plugged in. The ECT switch, that has to be plugged in or your transmission won't shift. So don't forget to plug your ECT switch in before you drive. Don't forget to plug your hazard button in so your turn signals will work. That one's for a clock. This module down here is something I also don't need because I don't have ABS on here. But in the interest of trying to make the speedometer work, I put that over here. Speedometer information coming right up. All right, now just a word on that speedometer real quick. When we were tracing down the wires from that back plug there just to make our fuel pump, sending unit, and gauge and everything work, that was really more difficult than I thought it was going to be. It was we had to do a lot of comparison. It's labor intensive following all those wires around. Wait till I show you what I did here. Now we got everything working but the speedometer, and I didn't have that module that you have to have plugged in to make the speedometer work with me at the time. So I brought it home, super excited, got it off the trailer, plugged that module in, took off down the driveway, no speedometer. Traced some wires, Got to have that little black box I'll show you in a minute in there. Got that little black box I robbed off of the 4Runner over here. Plugged it in. Now that's completing another circuit, but still no speedometer. So I check and it says wheel speed sensors from all 4 wheels need power to the vehicle speed sensor that makes the analog brakes work, because there's one vehicle speed sensor on transmission that tells the computer when transmission needs to shift. There's a second VSS on the 4-wheel drive transfer case if you don't have ABS. If you do have ABS, you get your second vehicle wheel speed sensor setting from the rear. The rear one can be bypassed, but you have to have front ones. Since this is a non-ABS truck, I'd have to change all the spindles and axles and everything over from a 4Runner to get those front wheel speed sensors working. Now, that's what I learned. If you know something better than that, or you know different than me, let me know, please, because I struggled with that, and I'm going to show you what I ultimately had to do. Because this is still the transmission from the V6. So the transmission, transfer case, all that's from the V6 truck. I was able to take out the blank plug on the back of this transmission and plug the speedometer cable in from the transmission I took out. And thankfully the gear is there inside the transmission, and I can get my speedometer work, and it's accurate off the cable. All right. So now I have the cable speedometer working in the old 4Runner cluster, or old Tacoma cluster. Guess what? Nothing matched up on. The plug's on the back. Okay, I hope you enjoyed some of those pictures of the cluster that I was dealing with. And I'm going to try and fish my schematics out from under my cat slim there so I can show you a thing or two I did, because doesn't this look like a fun project? And if that makes your head swim right there, I can tell you, if I figured it out, you can figure it out. And this is what I had to do to make everything work over here. On the back of the cluster, there goes a brown plug, a blue plug, and a white plug. Same thing on the 4Runner. Brown plug, blue plug, white plug. Okay, that sounds good, right? Well, guess what? None of the wire locations are the same. So aside from the speedometer, which I now have working off of the cable, I just needed to make the tach, the temperature gauge, the fuel gauge, and the idiot lights down along the bottom that tell me what's going on with the car all work, as well as the cruise control. So in order to have the temperature gauge, tach, speedometer, I had to, or forced to, or was resorted to, again, because I'm trying to do this with things that I have and knowledge that I'm learning along the way, I have put the speedometer cable back in and make that work. So, make that work. Well, it does work, and the speedometer reads now, the transmission shifts. I have the temperature gauge and the fuel gauge working. The tach is still a 4-cylinder tach. It does run and operate. It does read about 2,000 RPM faster than what the engine's actually running, and it's consistent in its range. Now I have an OBD2 scan gauge thing that I can plug into that again when it's test drive-y time and monitor all that. I got my GPS. I can make sure the speedometer is working right. So all I had to do was find the wires that made, say, my speedometer or my temperature gauge work over on these plugs, cut those wires, solder fit them together with these awesome solder fit melt together things that I'll show you how those work if you're not familiar, and put the wires from these plugs off of the Tacoma and mate them together. Now remember when I said down here it was green to black, green to black, green to white, green to white, green to purple, or whatever the case was? Same thing over here. Like, wow, fantastic. All those wires were the same. Well, let me tell you, and I'll show you here in a minute on the schematic, when I took like a black from yellow over here, traced it down to see what it did the same thing as the black and yellow on the Forerunner harness. That was just in a different location. So I just had to cut it off the back of its plug here, attach it to the side of the plug here. Okay, green and red, green and red. There's my yellow and orange. That's my fuel sender, right? There's some browns and browns. There's some red and green, red and green. Okay, grab my notes here from under my kitty. And no, that's not a euphemism for something dirty. I'll get to this part here in a minute. Now, here is what I was saying, like there. Can you see that? Where's my flashlight? All right. There's nothing to hold it. Hang on. Okay. Oops. You can see there. If I can get my flashlight to stay. All right. So that's like a yellow-red. Right? Yellow-red. Well, that is the fuel sending unit. We already know that. Sorry, that's really hard to get that in there. But there's a yellow-red, and you can follow that down. And what's it go to? What's it go to? The fuel sender at the top of the fuel tank. Same as the brown that comes out, which is grounds, and the yellow-blue. And you go up here and you look, and that's position A4 for the yellow-red. So you can find A4 right here. That's the pin on your cluster. And it goes to your fuel gauge, so you know that's right. But you know it goes to your fuel sender because you followed it. Okay, so red and yellow, that's groovy. Here's my red and yellow here. What does it do? It comes from the top of the fuel sender, red and yellow, see it? Follow it up, follow it over. It's in pin connector A, spot 6. So you go to your fuel gauge up here. This would be on your cluster back. And boom, A6. See it? Sorry, my hand's a little shaky there. But anyway, you can see, and then so that's how you know you got your fuel gauge wire and it's the correct one, same color. So I went through, and some of them have a direct description or an easy way to follow them. You can compare that. You can come over here and go, hey, that's my same color one. Yep, goes to the same thing on my Forerunner. And you know you got them correct. Okay. After I went through, matched all of my ones that were the same color, that I double checked to make sure, mind you, that they went to the same thing. You gotta double check. I had this many empty spots on the Forerunner, or wires that weren't going anywhere, and this many on my Tacoma. I went in for my homework lesson for different colors. Like this one went to the clock and the taillight fuse. I found one. Okay, bad example. Let's see, gauge fuse. Okay, gauge fuse, clock and taillight fuse. That was the same one. So then you come down here and see where I matched them up. So what did I match up to D1 was B5. Black and yellow to red and orange. This went to a junction block for gauge fuse and speedo for trans. This one went to a junction block for gauge fuse. I had to trace those down because they're different colors, but then I found out, so I wrote them down. B5 Forerunner goes to D1. Okay, hope this is all still making sense to you. Let's do the next one. A11 on the Tacoma side goes also off of the fuel sender. I found the one that goes off the fuel sender over here to be A10, and that's the one that made the little light work for the gas pump. All right, next thing I found was A12 over here. It was a green and orange wire, but it said automatic transmission system and ECT light. are the things it went to when I traced down A12 over here. Where's my ECT light? Sorry, these things get away from me after so many times of looking at it. I tell you, when you're looking at them both and you're going back and forth across, it can get really frustrating a little bit and annoying. There it is over here, ECT power, and I got A12. So A12, I wrote it down, ECT power. Then I went to my Forerunner, found out which one went to the ECT power. It was A5. It went to AT shift pattern and ECT light, A5. Just come over here to confirm it. Find your A5, right there it is, go into the damn ECT power switch light. So that's how you can double check. So you know which one goes where, then you just write them down. It was A5 on the Forerunner, with C7 over here. I came and tied all of those together. D14 needed an extra ground on the Tacoma harness. There wasn't a spot for a second ground out of the Forerunner cluster, so I didn't hook anything up. I've got 2 or 3 extra wires here on the Forerunner. They went to electric speedometer. They went to power door lock. That also leaves the, sets the security light. So that's a thing I didn't have. Airbag for the passenger side. That was a thing I didn't have. ABS we didn't have, so we didn't need that. So there's another ABS that I didn't need. So that's a few of those wires up there. I do have 2 coming out of the back of this that I can't find a place for them to go on the Forerunner harness, but everything is working except the speedometer slightly incorrect. So aside from the speedometer, or I'm sorry, tachometer not quite reading correct. Now, of course, I have to package all this, start driving this truck around and make sure everything is fine. There's where I'm just running my second ground out of that cluster. This will all be tucked up and packaged up. It doesn't look so bad. I don't want to wad this up yet, but I will at the end for packaging. But I want to drive it around first and make sure everything's good. So now I'm just down to basically packaging all this stuff that I didn't need up under and in the dash. This has been a great learning experience for me. It's been a great, especially for wiring, way out of my comfort zone on wiring. But that's the way I like to do stuff. Once you tear it all apart, then you got to put it back together. I'd like to go on some more about how to read schematics and maybe take it a little slower with some wires and show you. If you're interested in that, leave it in the comments. I'd be happy to kind of do it. Now, granted, I just learned I would look at these things over and over and just get a headache. My buddy sat down and showed me how to follow them through, how to read the numbers on the other things so they correlate, because you look and they don't line up. But yeah, so once you get it, you get it. If you already get it and it was easy for you, congratulations to you. My hat's off to you. I've struggled with wiring my whole life, and I think I finally got it now. And this was why I wanted to do this project. I love to just jump into things and take off and learn. I appreciate you following along on the journey with me. I got to switch out that steering wheel. Yeah, put everything in the dash back together, get this all packaged up, and start driving this thing around. I'm so happy to be at this point. You have no idea. I had it jacked up on jack stands to make sure, or to test the speedometer and stuff and all the gauges and everything else. I still have the air conditioner to do when the parts become available to me. I have to do a couple more wire splices. I might show you that. I'll probably do a thing where I wire up that radio stereo with the touchscreen and the rear view camera as just a little thing on how to wire up a camera. And I can show you them neat melt together connectors. You get this cool heat gun with the little thing on the end. Hey, dog face. And yeah, it melts them up and makes them great. So super do appreciate you. Over 1,500 subscribers. Man, you don't know how great that is for me. My show is growing really rapidly. I am super happy about that, and I owe it all to you guys. So please do like and subscribe and leave comments and hit bells and blow the whistle and all that kind of stuff, because it really does help me. I enjoy doing this show, trying to teach people how to work on their cars and not be afraid to go out and break them on the trail. And yeah, you know the message of my show if you watch, and if you don't, watch some of my old episodes. Yes, I am going to put that Detroit True Track in there. I may have got some high angle extended travel CVs for the Tundra. And there's going to be some sliders coming up in the next couple, 3 months on that. Oswald's had enough of this. I'm ready to get this down on the ground, packaged up and going. Appreciate you so much I do. Thank you for helping me get this message out that I'm trying to convey. Couldn't do it without you. Like and subscribe, please. If you don't, that's great too. I still just appreciate you watching, but it really helped me continue to make my show great if you do those things. So enough about that. Have a super great day.